All right, welcome to our Survivor Indianapolis Season 5 postseason interview coverage. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Dog Lover himself, Eli Cramer, our, what, 3, 6, ninth place, I think, finisher. Um, and we have some questions for Eli on his game. Some really, at least one specifically, maybe one of the most interesting rounds of Survivor Indianapolis that I've ever watched or edited through. So I'm really excited to break that round down, as well as other things that have happened in your game. So first, what, if any, was your pre-game strategy? Obviously, you didn't know. You knew that Cameron was going to be playing. Other than
Mm.
that, did you know that anyone else was going to be playing? And did you have any like strategy other than just like try to win?
So I'll break apart like in the questions you asked. I
Yeah, sure,
did
sure,
know who
sure.
was going to be playing because I don't know if this was cheating or not, but you did release the cast video that morning.
Okay,
And
yes, but like that morning.
yeah, yeah, like before that morning, no. I had a general sense going into it, like things to watch out for in the like power dynamic situations that this game has, like
Sure.
keep low, keep under the radar. And I did say that in my interview, like, but to be completely honest with you, when you're in the moment, my entire strategy, which was keep low on the radar, got completely thrown out because
Yep.
it's so much more stressful when you're actually doing it.
Yeah. I get it. I agree. Um, so the Bailey vote, this is not, it actually is not the round that I'm talking about when I mentioned one of the most interesting rounds. This is also is actually pretty for a tribe's first tribal council. It actually is a pretty interesting vote out because of the whole the kneel of it all. So in the
Mhm.
moment, you guys seem like you're all on the same page that while Neil is dead serious, you're not willing to vote him off. Is Was it all above board in terms of like that is what was true?
I so I've thought about this a lot because if if you think about what's being said, the team red pride, and
Yeah.
then except for Bailey when it comes to the beginning of the game, I you have to take Neil at his word. I do believe that he would have been okay to be sacrificed, but it
Hmm.
can also be seen as a tactic to being like the sacrificial lamb so people don't vote you out.
Yes.
Um, I don't really know what his goal was, but whatever he did, I think it worked for that round. I think everyone was on the same board with kicking Bailey out because, well, she wasn't there, so it was easy to put that target on her.
Sure.
So someone just had to go at like had to say it, had to be the first one to say it. And I don't remember specifically, it was either me or Leah was just like, we should vote Bailey out. And then
Yeah.
everyone kind of just agreed with what they were already thinking.
Yeah. I We haven't recorded this yet, but we are going to do some kind of like a post-season analysis, like in terms of the production team. What did we think? And I think that if other people had gotten to go to Advantage Island, that maybe if you or Drew or Leah, Neil, maybe you guys could have survived that. But I think Bailey was maybe the worst person on your tribe to have gotten that happen to her.
Mhm.
Um, and like as a twist, as a whole, I was left with a bit of a sour taste in my mouth because of the fact that I just didn't fully realize how much of a back foot it would put people on. But
Mhm.
we'll move on and focus on your game here. So the whole Siakam tribe, really, once you vote Bailey off, you're really doing pretty well overall. You won more challenges than she won. It was only by one, but still, you had that going for you, and you had a pretty clean first tribal council, um, given that it was, I believe it was like all on Bailey, and then only Bailey voted against um, Neil,
Is
right?
unanimous except for, of course,
So yes,
herself.
and then so that's pretty easy. You don't have to really do a whole lot of conniving, really, right there. So then
Mhm.
you get to the swap, and you have your brother with you, but you also have a married couple with you, and
Mhm.
Chris, someone from the other tribe that you hadn't worked with yet. So what were your thoughts before the challenge? You get your new tribe. What are you thinking?
So Oh, so before we get the new tribes,
No. After you, so you're in
after we
your
get the new
new
tribes.
tribe, but before you have one immunity, so you don't realize that you're
So
safe
it
yet.
it was scary for one on one end, but it was perfect on another, and I'll explain.
Sure.
So this is a bit of an information drop that becomes important when you look at the rest of the game.
Yes.
Me and Cameron, this happens when you have someone, we're not married, but when you have like a married couple or brothers and or sisters or anyone
Yeah.
with familial relation. Me and Cameron had already gone into it thinking, how can we put ourselves on top of this game?
Yes.
And from breakfast, we were already trying to find like one or two other people that could help make that alliance stronger. So when we got merged and me and Cameron were together and we were able to talk, that was perfect. And that made it seem like the power that Cameron was starting to get in his side of the game and that I was starting to get in Team Red, we could sort of talk to each other about, but it also separated us from those lines of influence at the same time. So it was scary on that front, but it was scary and secure. Um, but it was really enjoyable with the I'll address the married couple because you asked about them. I wasn't worried about that because I we had Neil in our back pocket pretty much because of the Team Red thing.
Yeah.
And Cameron kept saying to me, like, Sonia's fine. You don't have to worry about Sonia. She might get a little rambunctious at times, but you don't have to worry about it. So I felt secure for those first few rounds with Cameron.
Yes. Okay. That's definitely how it seemed. Um,
Hmm.
did so like the interesting part of it for me is that it seems like on paper for Cameron, other than maybe Mason, it was probably the person he's working the closest with Insomnia, getting with him. And then you, it was either Drew or Neil that you were the closest with from Siakam. So would you say that it was Neil?
Um, I would say that I was closest with Drew,
Okay,
but I was always sure I had Neil's vote.
sure. So so like it felt like if you and Cameron could have picked one person from your original tribes, then the people that you were with was either the first or second choice for you. You're saying second, but for Eli or for Cameron, I haven't asked him yet, so I don't
Mhm.
know if that's maybe his. Maybe he would have gone with because he definitely. It seems like he was closer to Sonya than he was to Mason, but part of that is that Mason got voted off earlier, so it's hard to
Mhm.
know. Um, so it looks like you're doing okay. Then you win the first challenge, so obviously you're doing good there. Then unfortunately, part of the twist of the next round of play was that Chris wins immunity. So do
Mhm.
you? I have not talked to anybody other than you on this point here, because it seems like in the video you guys talked about like, well, we can't vote for Chris. Like that was pretty open and shut. Do you feel like that would have been like a 4-1 vote? Was it pretty clear cut that had you guys had conversations other than just you and Cameron before about voting off Chris?
I don't exactly remember, but I do remember that there was definitely, I mean, just think there was definitely the knowledge of Chris as a threat on
Yes,
the
sure.
athletic front and on the personality front.
Hmm.
Everyone, and I bet he knew that going in as well.
Sure.
And so people were just obviously, as the game goes, trying to eliminate that threat. So when someone who's a threat gets immunity, it pivoted to how can we like break his who has his votes, who is he influencing, how can we break his influence? And I think that's what everyone pivoted to, like who can we
Hmm.
vote out that's helping him, but everyone has a different opinion on that. So I don't know, when someone like Chris gets immunity, it's really frustrating to deal with.
Sure. So you do feel like if he had not gotten immunity, it would have been him.
Oh yeah, and I think that shows when he gets his immunity, taken away, he does get immediately voted out, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm trying to
I don't know
remember.
if it's immediately, but I'm pretty sure.
I think he was the next person voted off. I'm trying. Let me double check while we're talking, but because it was Neil instead and Adrian on the other side. Yeah, it was. The next round was Chris.
Hmm.
So, um, and then obviously he gets back into the game. That's a whole different story. So this this round with Chris getting immunity is to me, off the top of my head, one of the top two or three most interesting rounds I've ever witnessed
Hmm.
as a part of my game. Because again, you have two duos, and then the one in the middle gets immunity, and we have a lot of good footage of the different groups of people talking. And it seems like almost immediately, Neil is the one that gets the target. Um, so why do you think that it was so quickly and you worked hard to try to get Cameron off of that, but why do you feel like it was so soon that instead of it being like a conversation? Because it seems like the round ends, you four are standing there while Chris goes to Advantage Island, and then you and Neil walk off to go get sunscreen, and Sonya and Cameron are almost immediately like, well, it has to be Neil, right? Why do you
Mhm.
think it was him over you?
So this is where the me and Cameron thing, this is where Cameron's intelligence starts to come through about the long term. And there's nothing I can do. And basically, Neil was a Team Red. The first few rounds of the game were secure because of the Team Red identity.
Yeah,
And Neil was integral to that because he was like pretty much evangelizing Team Red the whole
yeah,
time.
yeah,
So if Neil's vote, if you think about it as numbers, and his like vocalness about Team Red gets taken away, Team Red becomes weaker. And I'm not quoting him, but I believe Cameron saw this and he needed to acknowledge that if he was going to have a long-term game, he needed to weaken me by weakening Team Red.
yeah. I think he never ever says to weaken you. I don't think, but maybe he may have felt that. And I haven't
No,
obviously haven't,
not that's all about me. I'm
I
saying
understand.
just weaken the other half of the players. I'm just in there then. I'm the one looking to.
Yes. So like, and I think that, again, I'm talking to you, not him. But
Hmm.
what it felt like to me was that he wanted to work with you and that you wanted to work with him. And like you said, but how both of you wanted to pull in people from your original tribes. It just felt like
Hmm.
it was unfortunate that while you felt really good about Neil was going to work with original Siakam, Red Team, over
Hmm.
anybody else. And he could not for the life of him just not say that. Like if he had ever just been like, yeah, I'll work with whoever. Like if he had just been a little bit more coy instead of being so direct, I think that maybe Cameron would have felt okay about it. But because he was so straight up, like this is what's going to happen, this is the truth, and I'll work with you guys now. But if it comes down to it, I'm going to basically vote with my original team over anybody else. So I think
Hmm.
that if it had been Drew with you, instead of uh Neil, maybe Cameron's willing to budge, maybe, maybe not. So given that obviously in hindsight is perfect, perfect vision in hindsight, but in the moment you choose to not play that steal a vote. So what did you think through and what did Cameron maybe say to get you to not play the steal a vote? Because it seems like in the video that Cameron is not really giving you a clear answer.
Yeah, so that's that right there. What you just said is the whole problem. I don't know if this got caught on camera or not, but as you were calling us to try, literally moments before, like the last thing was said, I got to the point to where I was threatening Cameron, and I said, Cameron, if you don't make clear to me that you're not going to vote out Neil, I will use my steal a vote on your vote and vote for like, you know what I mean? I've pretty much threatened him,
Yes,
and then
yeah,
he just was like, he looked like annoyed almost, and he was
yeah.
like, just trust me, and I was like, okay, and that ended up being a bad decision because so I kind of trusted like I don't know, it's weird when you're in the game because you look so dumb. I trusted him, and it looks so dumb in hindsight. Like, why would you trust him? But in the moment, it just felt like he had led me to this point, and I had helped him to this point the whole
Hmm.
game. Why would it change now? But it's because Cameron was thinking farther than I was,
Yeah. So,
and I just trusted him. That's why I didn't use the steal vote.
yeah. Okay, so do you think that if you had like realized it was going to backfire, would you have stolen his vote, or do you think you should have stolen like Sonya's vote or Chris's vote?
Mm, I think I would have. It's really it's not about Cameron specifically. It's just about any number that I
Sure.
knew was going to vote against Neil. Probably I wouldn't choose Cameron because that would seem more like an attack.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because then at least if you thought that, like even if you thought Cameron was like 70-30 gonna vote with you, you could have thought about playing the steal a vote. So
mhm.
Uh, was a part of it also that you just wanted to like save it for a bigger moment than this? Is this still pretty early in the game?
Yeah, I mean that's always like that's the risk factor in it is you don't want
Sure.
to waste it. But I really did. I was just going off of trust that he wasn't going to mess up our entire vote system we had going.
Yeah. So, because if you, let's just kind of like play a little hypothetical. Obviously, Adrian gets voted off on the other side in the same round. If Sonya goes, then theoretically it shouldn't change anything, and Chris goes next because he's still going to be the biggest target.
Mhm.
Um, but you go right after that. If you have Neil instead of Sonya, do you feel like that changes any of the numbers? Because it looks like basically you would have had, in theory, you would have you, Cameron, Drew, uh, and Neil. So you'd have at least four, whereas the group that voted you off it would have been like Leah. Um, I think Chris was back in the game, so you would have had Chris. It may have been close, but do you feel like that could have been like a tipping point in terms of like the entire game could look different just because of Neil being gone?
I do, not just because of a numbers game, but because of a influence game. Neil is not he's not a silent figure. So if he's bouncing around the game and he's always a safe figure for me in my game, that
Sure,
definitely does influence things. So even if the numbers aren't perfectly in favor, or even if they are, just having another tall, vocal adult around the game that has your vote is very, very vital.
sure.
And yeah, it's like another. It's yes, I think it definitely would have changed the trajectory of the game. It
Yeah,
also wouldn't have made Cameron's pivots to start changing the game for his favor. It would have made them more difficult because I would have had more support.
yeah. Okay. So the round before you get voted off. So the merge happens, Chris gets voted off. We don't have a ton of footage of that. What I've heard is there wasn't a ton of strategy during lunch. Now that could have been from people that weren't being given strategy. They were being left out. Do you recall the round that Chris got voted off? What was happening strategically with the players and with yourself?
So there was less strategy than you would expect. Can I speak about lunch personally from my experience for a second?
Well, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is where I believe that my game started to go downhill because I
Okay, so
started to get
not Neil, but this.
yes. Well,
Okay.
like if on paper it's Neil, but if you're I'm talking about my psyche,
Oh, okay.
I started getting very stressed during lunch. Getting very frantic. And
Yeah.
this is what I was talking about no matter what strategy or ideas I knew about how this stuff works before,
Hmm.
I started seeing I didn't just see half the game anymore. I saw how many people were here and how many people were talking and how many conversations were happening. And I just felt like I wasn't in relative control of my environment anymore. And I started feeling responsible to go around and talk to all these people that probably made me more of a target than I should have been.
Okay.
So regarding the Chris vote, correct?
Yes.
I definitely just wanted to. I knew I still had some of the Team Red people. I
Hmm.
still had, and I knew I pretty much had Cameron's vote. It was kind of an unspoken, but also kind of spoken thing that Chris needed to go.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure. So I talked to, I believe, like Annie and then some other players that were just less vocal, just being like, how are we feeling about this? I wasn't as comfortable talking to Leah, but I think there may have been a conversation or two there, but it was just scary. There was a bit of tension there, I thought, because,
Sure. Leah does ultimately vote for Chris that round. I actually just double checked it because in their interview he asked about that and I didn't remember, so I looked it up while we were talking, and she did. So I don't know if maybe somebody did fill her in, but it was
Mhm.
pretty lopsided on that one as well. Um, how do you feel like? Do you feel like you were pretty instrumental in getting Chris out in that round, or was it kind of more of just like a this guy is a huge threat, we should all just get him out?
I mean, I don't want to take credit for I don't want to take credit for, it's the same thing as the Bailey round. I don't want to take credit for possibly something that's just obvious.
Yeah,
Just because I'm one of the people saying it
saying it.
doesn't mean that I was the one that did it.
Sure. Okay, so then the very next round you have your vote out. So this is before because you were part of the returning player challenge. So that definitely clears it up a little bit. So Chris wasn't in the game. So like in a theoretical world where Sonya goes home instead of Neil at that round, um, Chris would not have been in the game, and so it would have been even more on your side for numbers. Let alone from your point about Neil's influence over those original Siakam members. So that round that you do go out, Drew tries to play the necklace on you. Unfortunately for you at least, especially, um, he didn't understand how that was supposed to work, and part of that probably is just a little bit of not understanding the way that it works in the real show, and also like it's one of those rule things that like I didn't think I had to explain because I didn't think someone would do that. Was that
Mhm.
something that was discussed beforehand that he had like told
No,
you, hey, I want to do this, or
that was
no?
purely reactive.
So
I didn't.
he just decided to do it. He hadn't told you anything about it. You hadn't asked for it.
Mhm. Well, I mean, the same way that this whole pyramid and this whole like this whole voting structure that me, Cameron, Drew, and well, at the beginning of the game, it would have been Mason as well, was building.
Yeah,
I rely on Drew, and Drew relies on me,
yeah,
and we kind of rely on Cameron. So without me, Drew knows that his time is coming.
okay,
And it's just kind of like it was necessary. But with that said, he never said I'm going to like, hey, if you get voted out, I'm going to use my immunity on you.
yeah,
Um, do you want to know something interesting about before that tribal?
of course.
Um, again, it seems the things that clue you into the tribals always happen moments before they start. I walked in the house because this is what I was talking about when I was getting frantic and feeling like I need to talk to anyone. I've
Yeah,
realized I haven't been talking to Annie and Leah this whole time. And I walked into the house, and in the doorway of the house, I saw Annie and Leah opening a little advantage.
okay.
And I think that's what the steal a vote was. And I was like,
I know that Annie did have a steal a vote, but Leah had an idol, so it could have been Leah's too. But
whatever it was, I saw them opening and looking, and I saw a picture of two people doing something out of the view of other people, people that I thought were on my side. And
yeah,
it just made me feel, it made me just like, oh, it made
you
my
realized
stomach,
they weren't as close to you as you
yeah.
maybe thought. Did they catch you?
I don't exactly
Did they
remember that.
see
I don't know
you
if they
see
caught
them?
me. Pretty sure I walked up to them. Like
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I it was so scary. It put a pit in my stomach, and then it kind of clued me into how that tribal would go. I did not expect Drew to try to do that at all. I
Yeah.
feel so bad for him because that probably put a target on his head for the rest of the game.
Yes and no. He already had a that's
Yeah.
I think that's I mean I haven't talked to him yet. I do want to do an interview with him, but um I would
Mhm.
assume he already had a target. And I mean
Yeah.
I know he already had a target. So it's just a matter of him thinking like, well, I already have a target. Like, what's the worst that can happen? I'm gonna get voted off anyways. Like,
Mhm.
so, so at this point, obviously, you get voted off, and then you do have the returning player challenge. I'm pretty sure, like, immediately. Um, yes, because Drew was the next vote, and he was voted off right after the returning player challenge. So, um, on the returning player challenge, did you think like how did you feel about that challenge? Was it like something that you thought you had a shot in? Just general thoughts on how that went for you.
So I I felt in confidence when I heard the words, "You don't need to know anything about Survivor." And
Yeah, I
then
mean, not deep information about Survivor, basic
and
stuff.
and then when I saw the questions, my confidence slowly died.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know I'm it was a good challenge. I'm not being a hater, but I don't know
You can be a
anything.
hater. You can be a hater. It's fine.
I don't know anything about Survivor.
Yeah.
So I assumed that was meaning like it was just going to be like another challenge that was just nothing Survivor related at all.
Okay.
And then I thought about that challenge for a while, and what I should have done is I shouldn't have, when I acknowledged that I wasn't going to be able to answer the questions with context clues, I should
Hmm.
have just ran and picked up the ping pong balls until I got the right ones, not even looking at the question.
Yeah, probably.
And by the time I made that in my brain, that idea, like, I need to do this, Chris had already like gotten most of them. So I was like, well, there's no really
Yeah.
point to keep going anymore, but
He was a good bit ahead of anybody else on that, which
mhm.
is funny because he also doesn't have really any Survivor knowledge. Um, okay, so at that point, game's over for you. You're fully on a member of the jury. But what do you think that you could have done differently um, to keep yourself in the game to potentially win the game?
Just like, especially at Merge, just relax.
Yeah.
Just chill out. Like, don't get involved with every single avenue of the game. Don't try to talk to everyone because you're going to be less effective at who you're talking to, and more people are going to see you, and that's not a very good thing. And I just wish I was less I wish I stuck to my gut and was less on the radar than I tried to be. Um, you don't need to be as freaked out as you are in the moment because the more freaked out you get, the more likely you are to get voted out.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, so you ultimately vote for Moretta, who wins 7-3 to 1. What did Moretta do to earn your vote?
She played the keep out of sight but stay safe game, I believe, perfectly. I was never really suspicious of her, but she ended up winning the whole game.
Hmm.
That's just like that's what you want to do, but what's so hard to do when you play a game like this, and she did it.
Yeah.
So I just feel
Awesome.
like she deserved it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And we'll wrap it up here on like a more of a light, fun question. Was there a challenge in particular that you thought was your favorite or like the best one for you?
Um, this is obviously my answer is going to be biased towards what I've won or not, because that's what a lot of the happy feelings are associated with.
Of course, of
But
course.
the one where you like turn the stones,
Yeah.
that
Flip
just
over the.
it felt cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, man. Well, thanks again for coming to chat for a little bit. Give us a little bit more insight into your game, what happened out there for you. And yeah, that's it. Thanks. Awesome.